a special welcome to the three icons. This year, we decided that technology has become such an integral part of every industry that it is important to recognize people who have applied technology in their respective industry in a manner that has given them a leadership position. And that's the process that we went through. Identified three people, one from the entertainment industry, Director Shankar, one from financial services and manufacturing industry, Mr. Arun Alagappan, and one who comes from the logistics industry. Logistics today, we don't know whether it should be called a logistics industry or a technology industry that applies technology to logistics. Mr. Dinesh, they're all here. We're extremely happy to be giving them the recognition on behalf of ICT Academy. I spent some time in the morning with the principals, head of departments, some vice chancellors, and chairman of colleges. This morning we had a session from about 7:30 to about 9:30, just interacting with them. I would like to very quickly summarize what we discussed in just 3 points, and then subsequently take up one topic that I thought I'll spend some time today. This is an AICTE report, which is very relevant for all the colleges that are represented here. This morning we had about 35 institutional leaders and industry leaders who participate in interaction, essentially to identify what are the type of challenges that the industry is going through. How do we prepare students for the future that is so rapidly changing? The 3 concluding points that emerged as part of that interaction was, first, the responsibility of the educational institutions and the academic institutions is education. They should educate the students and not become a training institution, because there is a significant difference between education and training. Okay, this is something that I have talked about earlier, so I'm sure all of you are aware of. I don't want to emphasize that and re-emphasize the difference between education and training. And also the career path and the opportunities that are available to the students coming out of colleges. The tendency appears to be to prepare these students only for a career in industry, in companies in the corporate world. I want to make it a point to again emphasize there are 3 broad alternatives for students coming out of education institutions. They can of course be part of the corporate sector, be in companies, which is where a predominant number of them tend to go. Second one is entrepreneurship. People can become entrepreneurs, which is something that we have seen happen in increasing numbers in the last 3 years. That is clearly a very good career choice, particularly in an area where, or at a time when technology is all encompassing and industries are struggling to transform themselves into the digital world. Small groups of people with niche skills can provide solutions that will transform both industries as well as individual companies into the new digital world. And the third one is education itself. Students can become teachers, they can become professors, they can become researchers, they can be part of teaching and training institutions and teaching and research institutions, which is much more important. You know, one example, the top institution in the country, Indian Institute of Science, develops over 400 PhDs every year, and close to half of them pursue postdoctoral work and continue to research and teach either in the same institution or go out and do research in institutions both in India and abroad. That is also a clear career choice that is available. And as the number of students increases, new technologies come about, there is a great deal of demand for those type of skills, and there are plenty of opportunities. And the second thing that we talked about, where there was a considerable debate about the curriculum in colleges, how rigid it has come out to be, and how do we change the curriculum in order to create students with relevant skills and training and learnability in today's context. So the point that was made was it is impossible for the educational institutions to keep pace with the rapid changes. Educational institutions to have the curriculum keep pace with the technological advances. It was possible for some time, about 5 years, 6 years, 7 years back, where the technology adoption by industry was not as rapid as we see today. In today's context, a new technology, a new product, a new platform gets to immediate use across industries in a very, very fast cycle. And that wasn't the case earlier. So for us to keep pace with the advances in technology is not going to be possible as part of the curriculum. We will have to figure out alternate ways of educating the students in new technologies, because that's what's going to be relevant. Today's colleges have to create the talent force for what's going to be relevant 5 years, 10 years down the line, what kind of industries are going to be there. And there is a whole lot of work that's available and that's been done in the area of future of work. So that was the second point that was emphasized. Don't worry about changing the curriculum, provide them the basic skills and training, answer their curiosity, but provide opportunities for them to learn new technologies. That was the second thing. And the last point that came about was industry, academia, government collaboration. And this is a topic that we've been discussing the last several years. Each one of these constituents doing enough for the other and for the nation. Is the industry creating enough opportunities? Are the colleges creating the right type of minds that are required in the knowledge-based economy? Or is the government supporting both the industry and the academic institutions to create a good ecosystem where research, talent, innovation, entrepreneurship will thrive? You know, that's a billion-dollar question. There is no single answer to it. But some of the recent studies have come to indicate that the government and the academic institutions seem to be doing a reasonable amount of work in the area. And the industry, it appears, is not contributing as much as they can, and certainly not as much as the academia and the government is contributing to education. Okay. One simple point or a statistics that was thrown out, you know, we were talking about scale, cost, and quality. You know, if we have quality, it is expensive. Cost and quality, scale and quality, not managed yet. We don't know how to produce quality at scale. Scale and cost seem to have some handle on that. But to have all three has become an impossible task. Scale, cost, and quality as far as the academia is concerned. So that's one challenge that appears. The second one is, you know, just talking about scale, the amount of money that the government spends on education is quite substantial. I believe about 75% of the government aid goes to leading institutions like the IITs, ISERs, IISc, IIMs, etc., which produce high quality but not at scale. Is that a tenable model is something that we have to ask that question. How long is that going to continue? Would there be a different model that the government would look at in order to encourage greater private participation? And the second statistics that's available is, compared to other countries, Indian industry is not investing enough in research and development. I'm sure there are exceptions in specific companies, but by and large, that investment is not happening, because of which the academic institutions don't benefit, and because of which we do not have the level of innovation that our potential offers. So these are some broad points that we talked about in the morning, not with any specific solutions, but at least to alert the institution saying, these are the challenges, and how do we collaborate in order to get a handle on at least some of these aspects. Before I come to the specific point that I wanted to make about the recommendations of AICTE, I just want to give a brief about ICT Academy itself, the path that it has taken, and where it is headed. Very briefly, this is an institution that was started about 10 years back with the Government of India grant to train 5,000 teachers in engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu. The idea was, in the IT revolution and the IT industry, students only from metros and premier institutions seem to be participating. How can we make students from colleges located in tier 2, tier 3 cities competitive enough so that they can compete with students from metros and be part of that industry? That was the idea. And the solution was, we will train the teachers first, encourage them to participate in industry events, encourage them to spend time in companies, IT companies and communication companies, so that they understand and they can go back to the students and talk with confidence what is required. That's an experiment that was carried out for about 3 to 4 years, and it was a successful experiment. All the colleges participated very, very efficiently and effectively. And at the end of the 4th year, not only had ICT Academy completed training 5,000 teachers, who in turn developed about 250,000 students, but it turned out that the proportion of students from Tamil Nadu was far higher than the proportion of students from any other part of the country who participated in the IT sector. Clearly, the market share equation or the market share result was in favor of what the academy did. But more importantly, the proportion of students coming from tier 2, tier 3 colleges in Tamil Nadu was higher than the proportion of people coming from the metros who participated in the industry. So these are two metrics that gave us the confidence that here is something that we have got, that we should take it forward and, if possible, replicate it and scale it up. And that's when the technology partners that we have came in and provided a lot of help. Many of them are represented here. You would have seen the logos of companies here, companies like Salesforce.com, NVIDIA, Autodesk, VMware, Oracle, IBM, Microsoft. All of them said, this is an interesting experiment. We would like to open up our academy, our course content, our teachers to come and participate in this initiative and develop both faculty and students. And that's the exercise that's been going on. We have had these technology partners for several years now who have immaterial of the effort that it takes to train the students and the cost. They've invested significantly in developing both the academic institutions as well as students from all these. So a big thank you to them, and we hope to continue that partnership, not just in Tamil Nadu, but across the country. And we are adding more and more of the technology partners as new technologies emerge. One example again is Amazon Web Services. A rapidly growing aspect of all that happens in the technology sector. They have been a great partner in training students, and that kind of hunt will continue as part of ICT Academy. The main point that I wanted to come to was a study that has been published by AICTE. AICTE, as you all know, is the regulator for the academic institutions or the education industry. And AICTE and NASSCOM put together a high-powered team, which was headed by BVR Mohan Reddy. Is a past chairman of NASSCOM. He's the head of the ITES Sector Skill Council, and is one of the board members of ICT Academy and an active participant in all the activities of ICT Academy. They put together a report and gave a few recommendations. That report is available. I've just passed it to Shivkumar, and I've requested him to share it with all of you. But I want to read out a few points that may be of relevance to this audience as you make progress. First and foremost, technology and globalization have turned countries into knowledge-driven economies. They are radically accelerating the pace of change in the world and raising the long-term risks. Success in knowledge-driven and innovation-driven world order depends largely on the capabilities of the people, and higher education, especially engineering education, is the key to building these requisite capabilities. So that's the preamble. That's the underlying premise with which the whole report starts. And it goes on to talk about all the numbers. There are 16 lakh 16 lakh students, or this is the capacity in the engineering institutions. Enrollment is about a little over 8.6 or 8.7, 52%. The pass-out ratio diminishes, and the employment is even further diminished or very much lower, etc., etc. Somewhat of a gloomy picture from an overall perspective, but there are some market-driven forces that are changing it. For example, in Telangana and Andhra states, apparently in the last 2 years, close to 200 of the engineering colleges have been closed because of lack of demand. So clearly the market forces are working, which is the way it should be. So the first recommendation that NASSCOM made to AICT, which has been accepted, I think there is a news item about that in today's paper. In the current year, 2017-18, this is slightly dated, capacity utilization in undergraduate and postgraduate level is as low as 49.8%. This is capacity against enrollment. Creating any further capacity is a big drain on investments, since at the very basic level, it involves the creation of physical infrastructure like buildings and lab infrastructure. We recommend that we do not create any new capacity starting from the academic year 2020. The creation of new capacity can be reviewed every 2 years after that. A major recommendation that's been accepted. The second point that I would like to highlight, there are several recommendations. There are something like 14 or 15, but I'm just going to talk about 3 or 4, which are important. The second one is traditional engineering disciplines such as mechanical, electrical, civil, and electronics engineering capacity utilization is around 40%, as opposed to computer science and engineering, aerospace engineering, mechatronics, which is close to 65%. Clearly, these are the industries of the future. People talk about, the proportion of the global GDP occupied by the top 4 industries will go from about 12% to 18%. And that will be the aerospace, aviation, space industry, technology industry, of course, IT, ICT, communication, renewable energy, okay, and healthcare. So those are the future industries that people are focusing on, and it appears that the students are also clued into that area compared to the traditional engineering. So the recommendation is, we recommend that no additional seats are approved in traditional engineering areas, but institutions need to be encouraged to convert current capacity in traditional disciplines to emerging new technologies. This is something that the committee has made. This is something that the academic institutions will have to debate and see whether it's a right recommendation. Would they agree with it? Or should it be the traditional disciplines plus the new age disciplines that are to be integrated? That's an open question. And the third point, which is also very important, is we may have to seek more technology interventions such as MOOCs, which all of you are familiar with, to circumvent some of the constraints with faculty shortage and the quality of pedagogy. Students should be given more flexibility to use MOOCs in their core and optional curricula. Universities and autonomous institutions should be mandated to use MOOCs in the short term. This has made a significant difference. We already know that NPTEL, the course content that has been created by all the IITs together, that is being used both by faculty and students. There are close to about 3 million students and faculty that have used it in the last 18 months, as per the statistics published by IIT Madras, who are administering NPTEL courses. And the number of courses has also gone up from about 150, about 3 or 4 years back, to more than 1,000 today. So there's plenty of content that is available. But the whole area of MOOCs is something that we'll have to tread very carefully. It hasn't been very successful elsewhere in the world. People talked about Coursera, EDX, etc. as changing the whole landscape of education, but that's not something that has happened. So we will have to cautiously tread on that, but that kind of a resource is available. And more recently, again, an IIT Madras initiative based on NPTEL content, they have created a Digital Skills Academy. And this Digital Skills Academy is aligned with the National Skills Development Corporation's qualification packs and the National Occupation Standards. There is a sector skill council that is focusing on creating skills for the IT, ICT, and the BPO or the ITES industry, they have done tremendous amount of work giving the course content and the skills that are required at various levels, level 1 to level 8, in the various industry segments of this ITES industry. And now, IITs have come together to create course content and deliver it and provide a mechanism where students and teachers can do project work and get certified so that they're ready to participate in the industry. That's another important aspect that all the academic institutions will have to keep in mind. And then the last point that I want to make is about the organization and administration. This is an important one for those of you who are heads of departments, principal, chairman of colleges. There is evidence to point out that the current industry-academia interaction requires improvement. We recommend the following interventions. Analytical tools should be used to understand the impact of various teaching methods and identify the best methods of executing coursework and apprenticeship. Tightly integrate apprenticeship with pedagogy. Second one is apprenticeship should be made mandatory on industry. In some ways it exists but needs rigorous implementation, and also progressively mandatory on educational institutions, starting with 25%, moving to about 100% in 5 years, a significant intervention. Third, 2 industry representatives to be part of the advisory board of each institution. You will have to make room for industry representatives. And finally, establish 20 national knowledge functional hubs, NKFH, as a pilot in AICTE approved institutions to create an ecosystem of sustained industry academia engagement. Essentially to say, industry academia engagement happens in bridge conferences like this. It has to be sustained, and the mechanism and the organization structure and the intervention has to come in place so that this is a continuous process, not a one-off in events like this. I think these are some far-reaching recommendations that have been made, that have been accepted by AICTE, and in the weeks and months to come, I'm sure you will hear a lot more from them that will improve the level of education, the quality of education, and the quality of the students that come into the industry. And ICT Academy is committed to work with AICTE in participating and implementing all these aspects and continue to engage with the industry so that they can make greater investment in the students and greater participation in the education institutions. With that, I'll conclude and look forward to engaging with you throughout today in this bridge program. Thank you very much.